In our group, I was listening, and most of the things they were mentioning, I've never thought of something like that, but it's made me to think of all the things that I do. So I mentioned whenever I'm stressed, I like to just be alone, find a space where I just need to be alone, whether it's I drive, I will go somewhere, just be alone. I might be just lying down, not really sleeping, but just being alone in that space just to process the stress, process my thoughts. I also mentioned I'm coming from a very big family. I'm growing up with a lot of siblings. I always go back to my siblings to just have that social connection, just laugh, nostalgic memories. That really helps also with my stress. Another thing that I mentioned was with my partner, we usually just blast loud music and just dance it out, jump, maybe not dance, just keep jumping till we're breathless. And that really helps to calm things down. Yeah.
Do you have imagination when you're there lying, stressing things out? Do you use imagination at that point? Because imagination isn't seen like, oh, imagination can be a way to do that physical stress processing, but it's actually one of the great ways. And as children, we used it quite a bit, and we've lost some of that as adults. Who else would like to tell us? Maybe one or two more, and then we'll talk about how do we help those around us have that space. Who else? I'm looking at this row of men here. David.
So actually a lot of the things that lots of other groups have spoken about, I suppose one of the things that all our group had in common was like the idea of like getting up and getting out of the space, even if it's for 5 minutes to go for a walk so that you remember the world is big and that there are lots of other people with lots of other things going on. I was saying for me, one of the things like outside of a festival environment when it's maybe busier, like on a day-to-day work thing is I like go to the cinema a lot because it's the one moment where like my phone has to be off. And like even if I have notifications turned off and my email off, it's like the one moment that you can't turn it on and just check and have a look. You know, when you've got like 5 minutes when you're waiting for something, you often turn on your phone and like, oh, well, I'll just see what's there. And it's like a one moment to kind of disconnect. And I think one of the great things that someone in our group said was like having a mantra of like, I'm not a brain surgeon, like at a stressful moment, that like there's no one's life on the line, that like to kind of contextualize kind of what we're doing. And while it's important, like it's also, you know, we're not doing surgery, or hopefully not anyway. Great, so that was our group.
Thanks. One other, just one more. Here she goes.
I think we've shared very similar ways of dealing with stress, as I heard around the group. I was just telling Kantari now that I forgot about one that is really important to me, and it makes me laugh, it makes me feel light. Speaking to children and asking them for advice. Literally, I will ask the most complicated thing in the world, and they will give me advice that makes sense. And I'm like, oh, but I just spoke to a professional, they didn't tell me that. So yeah, speak to children more often. You know, even if it's just a child in the park, well, of course, don't be creepy, but if it's in a consensual, you know, space, just speak to a child and it's warm and fuzzy and loving. Yeah.
Tyson, come on.
Yeah, you are true. Yeah, I think I would like just to add something. Yeah, Dominique she said everything about everything I mentioned in our group, and also what Noctoro had about talking with the kids is something important, so it's helping me a lot. And also, doing sport is something good. Make gyms. Gym is very important. And the last thing, for me, when I'm stressful, I take that time to compose music. When I compose music, it's the time I compose great songs. Most of the songs, even Kivu and other jazz songs I compose, is the time that I'm stressful. And I use that time to be more creative, create songs, create things, and create music. Yeah, that's the thing I would like to have.
That was beautiful. Who would like to talk about creating space for others to complete their stress process? Has anyone given that a thought? You want to tell us? Come.
Hi. So this in my group was majorly where I spoke, because I naturally exist in a group whose first line of approach has to be from a place of healing. The people I work with, the festival I curate, is with traumatized people already. They're coming with their baggages. They want to work with you. They have unhealed trauma. They would have emotional breakdown while you're working. There'd been a case where we're working someday, we're actually decorating, and one of my team members just started crying, unprovoked. Right, so naturally we exist in this space. And number one thing and the main thing we do for self-care for the team is to humanize the work. It's humans that are behind what we call the work. It's humans that make up the festival. It's humans that even make up the team. So we do not try to be your therapist. We're not your doctor, but we can give you time. We can give you resources. We also, for example, a lot of people who work with us are doing from a place of passion. They've not even eaten. If you know the LGBT community very well, people are that way. They've not eaten, they just come in because they would see community, they would see friend, they wouldn't be scared, they would laugh, right? So it could be as simple as just providing lunch for everybody. It's like I said, it's humanizing the work, recognizing it's humans that are behind this. And that's the major thing we do to create safe space for everybody. Thank you.
And that's the beautiful piece of community care. Come sit up. Just come and sit. Just come and sit here, please. Just sit down.
Yeah, okay. So this was, sorry. No, this was just actually, thanks for that, because it reminded me of something that a festival director actually once shared with me. In fact, Shrishti's boss, Kwasar, who once shared this with me. We were interviewing him for a project on skill gaps in the culture sector. And I remember he said that, you have to understand that a lot of people who are working in theater and many creative fields tend to be misfits. They tend to be outliers because, the society doesn't perhaps accept their creativity or what they want to do. And it's important to recognize that. And also, one of the reasons for mental health challenges in the space, which you always are not equipped to handle. In a sense, you attract that creativity, but with that creativity also comes, people who are trying to find a space in the world, which traditional career models don't necessarily give them that space, but you become. So it's just to recognize the sort of double expectation that's on cultural organizations and people who lead these organizations or are part of these organizations, and to be kind to yourself in that process. So I just thought that was a very valid, and I'm so glad you brought it up, because there's like that double, I was talking to someone about Duba's double consciousness, this theory on how there's a layer of responsibility on you or an understanding of your world, and there's another layer of responsibility and understanding on your world, and this sort of meta thought around that just reminded me of that. I wanted to share. Thank you.
Who else would like to tell us about creating the space? Shikti?
So our group spoke about a few things, and one of the things that came out was just planning for what could go wrong, and therefore having a plan B, C, D, E, how many ever you need, because it just gives you a sense that you have certain things in control and it's not going to all fall apart. And the other thing that came out was to delegate, because everything doesn't need to be done by yourself. So to make that space to say, okay, these are 10 things that are on my plate, but I'm going to give two to someone, and to reduce your stress. So that's something that came. I'd just like to share a couple of things that I think our festival does, and it really helps. So the youth festival, the youth theatre festival, we actually make our own decor. Decor is just when you enter the festival, the different origami things that you see. Sometimes we just use cloth to just make the space vibrant. So before the festival, when it gets really stressful, we all stop working, and we forget the deadlines, we forget scheduling, we forget all of that, and we just sit around and make that decor and piece for the festival. And it helps because then suddenly everyone's singing and everyone's talking and no one's really thinking about work. So that. The other thing, which I think is a very theatre tradition, at least in India, is we cut cakes for whatever reason, right? So if it's a premiere, we'll cut a cake. If it's the closing show, we'll cut a cake. We don't need a reason. But we do that for the festival, either at the start or the end or in the middle, where we all get together and we cut a cake. The crew cuts a cake, and that in itself is just, it's so important. So yeah, that's something that we do. And I think finally, the other thing that we do is we have something called as ICC, which is an internal complaints committee, which is important, again, because of the harassment that people might go through. And we, in our team briefings, we ensure that we say that there are 3 people and there's someone outside the organization also who's a part of that. So if there's anything that happens as a part of the festival or the organization, you have people that you can go to and you can escalate. And it's really, we ask you what you want us to do with that information. Do you want us to take action with it, or do you just want to confide and share that something like this happened? And it's a safe, anonymous space for you to do that. So yeah, that's just something. You want to help me out with the law?
Sorry. So ICC is, this is prevention of sexual harassment at the workplace. So it's a law that's mandated now. If you have an organization of more than 10 people, it's mandated for you to have an internal complaints committee. And a lot of the time it's just on paper. But I think what Shrishti is trying to say is that's used as a way to have that safe space and maybe expanded beyond sexual harassment and including any other kind of issues that you may have. And there are 3 people appointed within the team, I think, to address those complaints. Very much like Brett here today.
So I just heard a great quote that says, "A party without a cake is just a meeting." Do we have a couple more just before we end and go to break? Talking about the space. Come, Horatio.
I think that what's good also, especially if you're like a team leader, but in a team in general, is to give positive feedback. And not just when someone does something and say, oh, this is very good, but just sometimes out of the blue, you can just go and say, by the way, I love that you're very attentive to these details, or you're always responding to everything, or you're very creative, or whatever. I think that sort of positive feedback to others' work, it's encouraging. And I think it's also good to recognize when someone is doing their job right, because we usually just say, you're late, this is not well done. And I think it's also important to recognize the good things of how someone is working or their, yeah.
Thank you. Come, Andy.
Okay, so The first thing I want to say that we deal really with a lot of volunteers and big team. So we have like around 200 volunteers before the festival and when it takes place. So one of the things that helps before the festival, when we are starting to prepare the space, the forest, making decorations and stuff, is that we are already there and we know this place and we know that what's happening and what's gonna come the festival, and just being there and imagining the festival itself makes you like understand why you're doing it, and that it's not gonna, whatever happens, it's not gonna like, nothing terrible happens, no one dies, like whatever. So we work all day, and when we like finish some like set of work, at the evening we would just have musical jam together, enjoy, have a good time, have some good food, and just that would be a ritual kind of thing that we always do before the festival when we are preparing. Another thing is we have like a creek, a really cold creek where you can dive into. So whenever you're feeling like you are overwhelmed and tired of all the activities, you can just go in, just take off your clothes, dive in, and rethink, like you're like completely refreshed and you forget about all your stresses. Yeah. We also get together with the team that is the co-founders team, and we share all the problems if we have any, and we understand that we have certain risks, but we are willing to take on them and we are willing to handle them, and that's like just sharing together in the team makes it more expected and like more, I don't know, like just disappears, I don't know, kind of thing. Yeah. So that's what I wanted to share. Like that's the delegation part and being prepared. That's what you really can do a lot. Like, and also like when I'm before the festival, when I'm working from home at some point, and sometimes I work on location. So if I do a lot of online and preparation that is not connected to the place, whenever I come to the place, I just go help designers to decorate the place, or I go help do something with my hands. That really calms me down, and I just forget about the stressful parts of the festival. So, but basically, like the festival is pretty much encrypted with the spirit of not being stressful. So the team itself that has like come together, everyone supports each other, and it's really important. Like any girl like can come and she just gives you a hug and like, oh, relax. What's in my mind? It's just bullshit. Oh. Like, come on, this kind of people, yeah, like everything will be fine. Yeah. So thank you.
Cold therapy, wow. You have something, one boy?
So something that we shared in our group was how physical tiredness can actually affect also your mental capacity. So, and we all know how festivals can be very, very busy and demanding. So there's a designated place that we can actually put aside for someone to go and have a nap or have some rest. So that's very important. Something that we actually practice with the organization that I work for is having, what is it called? Game nights. Yeah, so it's a good bonding experience for everyone where we just share a meal, we play games, we listen to music, and sometimes we also do out-of-town trips together, go hiking. So it's a really good way of bonding outside of work. Another thing is appreciating, just as you mentioned, appreciating each other. So I'm pretty sure, maybe or maybe not, but most of you probably practice Secret Santa, where you gift at the end of the year. So it's really, it's actually something special to be given like a gift. Personally, I love receiving gifts, so if you have a gift for me, thank you very much. But it just feels very special to appreciate someone else, yeah.